Assalamu alaikum, hello and welcome to On Renewables, the podcast brought to you by the UAE mission to IRENA, that's the International Renewable Energy Agency. My name is Nawal Al-Hosseini and I'm the UAE permanent representative to IRENA, and I will be your host for a series of podcasts that talks to some of the most influential people and thought leaders in the fields of renewable energy, climate change, sustainability and the environment about the issues shaping the world we live in. My guest this episode is one of Singapore's most esteemed modern politicians and the recently appointed Minister for Sustainability and the Environment, Ms. Grace Fu. Ms. Fu had held positions in the Singaporean government as Minister for State for National Development, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Information, Communication and the Arts, and the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources, the Ministry for Culture, Community and Youth, and Leader of the House. Most recently, in July 2020, she was appointed Minister for Sustainability and the Environment. Grace, welcome to On Renewables.
Hello, Nawal. Very nice to meet you and everyone watching.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us from sunny Singapore. It's really an honor to host you today. Now, given Singapore's upstanding global reputation for being innovative and industrious, it's no surprise to see you bringing new ideas and mandates to the fore. So to start our discussion on how Singapore is approaching the fight against climate change, it's worth mentioning that the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment, which you took in July last year, is newly renamed from the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources. I wonder if you could tell us the reason for this change in name. Does it entail change in approach? And what does that tell us about Singapore's priority areas and strategy?
Thank you, Nawal. That's a very good way to start introducing Ministry of Sustainability and Environment to your audience. The change from Ministry of Environment and Water Resources to Ministry for Sustainability and Environment is more than semantic. It actually signals the intent of the government to put sustainability really as a core value of our policies. As you know, sustainable development has very broad scope, and it cuts across many industries, but my ministry will like to put sustainability in any of the relevant ministries and policies, public policies, and put that at work. What do I mean by that? Sustainability to us also includes climate change, adaptation, resilience, and action. So that's a very big inclusion in the ministry's work. Secondly, we like to put resource utilization and circularity into the work, into our work. In the past, perhaps in the 5-10 years ago, Ministry for Environment tended to look at environmental protection. But now we would like to expand the scope to think about resource utilization much better. How do we bring circularity so that we can get more value out of the resources that we use, but also make us more resilient, putting food, water security, for example, into our policy consideration. And the third part, which is a new addition in Singapore, is the work on food. We have included the policy work of 3 ministries in the past to my ministries in the last 2 years, primarily because we see food security, food quality, and public health issues on food to be paramount. And we want to coordinate that in one single ministry. And so that's basically concentrated in MSE. So with these 3 elements, the sustainability theme becomes very important. The previous work about thinking about pollution is no longer sufficient. We'd like to expand environmental work to include our climate resilience, our resource resilience, as well as economic resilience.
Fantastic. And to your point, giving this nexus is very, very important. Getting it right is very important. So specifically then, can you tell us more about Singapore's approach to tackling climate change and how that falls under the remit as Minister of Sustainability and Environment?
I think there were probably 3 areas that we look into. First of all, I think it's a very important first thing to do for most ministries, really to understand the science behind climate change. For us, as a small island surrounded by water, we really like to understand the impact of global warming on seawater level, because that's really paramount. Is the first basic assumption that we have to get ourselves around when we think about how do we adapt. What do we do? Is it building more infrastructure, higher grounds, or using natural resources, natural solutions to help us adapt to the climate change? I think that's something that's important for us. That's on the very first level. The second level is really to look at how can we mitigate climate change. We want to be a responsible member of the global community. We look at our carbon emission and we study sectorally the contribution to emission. So we look at what we can do with each of the sectors, how we can bring it down, and where there are gaps, as in gaps in solutions, gaps in products and services at the moment, we will invest in R&D, in research and development, to search for technologies that can help us solve our problem. The third level is really to get the population along with us, because we are looking for change. The world needs change, change in the way that it will produce things, change in the way that it will consume things. And in this process of change, we need to get the population along. We need to let them understand how each and every one of them are contributing to global warming and how each of them can mitigate climate change through their choices. And that's an important part of our engagement process from the government with the people.
Absolutely right. And you cannot do it without the man in the street. We've learned that. And it's very important to engage the population and engage people to be the one who are actually driving this vision forwards. Grace, Singapore has been a role model in many sectors. And we have been studying Singapore case studies in so many different fields. So given the seriousness of this issue, can you give us some examples of what is Singapore doing to become more sustainable?
There are many things that we are doing, but very, very briefly, we look at how we can improve, for example, our energy efficiency. That's a big, big ask, because the way that we generate energy will determine the carbon footprints of almost 100% of the people in Singapore. So we're looking to use more renewable energy. More importantly, I think we're also looking at how to electrify more and more of our users. So for example, on the public transportation, we're going to move towards electric vehicle by 2040. We're also studying how we can make the grids smarter, more efficient, less heat loss, so that we can generate a lot more electricity with the resources, the energy, or the fossil fuel that we buy. We are also working on collaborations with the region. So we have some discussions about a regional energy grid. And when that comes along, it allows us to have greater energy security, at the same time, alternative to more renewable energy sources. Similarly, we're looking at how we can, for example, get more out of our waste. As you know, we adopt 100% of waste to energy. 100% of our waste is incinerated and collected and converted into energy creation. But we are looking at how can we harness more energy out of the waste. So if we segregate and collect our waste at source, for example, we are doing a project to separate our food waste and the water waste from reclamation. And when we mix them together, we find that we're able to generate 40% more electricity from this biomass processing. So this is a way for us to always look for innovation, never happy with the current technology, always asking ourselves, how can we get more of the resources that we are consuming? How can we get more energy out of the waste that we are incinerating? And with each very focused sectoral targets, we hope to achieve more, even though we are renewable energy constrained.
Very inspiring. So How does, with all this work, how does Singapore intend to meet its global climate commitments? What can you tell us about Singapore's Green Town program and how they have contributed to the country's climate action efforts?
So, when we looked at the infrastructure and also the land use of Singapore, where we live constitute a large part. As I mentioned, we are a very dense country, 5.5 million on 700 square kilometers. So where we live is definitely a part that is very close to our hearts and impacts 100% of our people. So how do we make our way of living an energy efficient one, a pleasing one that has no air pollution, one that has clean air, and also has lovely trees around us to provide us with the kind of comfort in our living environment. So EcoTown has that objective of converting some of our existing residential area by adopting new technologies in waste processing, new technology in cooling in Singapore because we're tropical. So instead of heating, we're looking at cooling. So we're looking at systemic energy efficiency and not just improving the efficiency of an individual air conditioner. We find that when we are able to cool as a district, we're able to harness the heat better. We're able to optimize the energy grid better. On a system level, we're able to achieve much more energy efficiency than in individual households doing their own thing. So that's a major part of EcoTown. And also in the way that we design the town, we want to design for public commute. We want to design for walk and ride. What we mean by that is that we hope that everyone has about 10 minutes walk to a public transportation option. So when we do that, we take away the need to drive, and obviously that's really a big carbon footprint. So the town is designed to enable the people to adopt environmentally friendly and also sustainable way of living.
Fantastic. So how much importance is the Singaporean government putting on renewable energy? What role do the sector play in Singapore's long-term climate change strategy?
Because being a very small country and with very limited land, we are quite constrained when it comes to renewable energy. And in the terms of solar, we are adopting about 350 megawatt peak right now. We intend to quadruple that in 2025, and that's 5 years' time. So quadruple what we are doing in 5 years' time. And how do we intend to do that? We're looking for better technology in the solar cells that we're deploying. Secondly, we're also looking at how do we implement better so that we can get more energy out of it. So in the way that we install it, in the way that we maintain it, we are also doing R&D on it. We're exploring other ways, vertical solar cells on a facade or building facade, and some unconventional places as well, such as in our park or public spaces. How can we have innovation in the product so that it becomes aesthetically pleasing and energy efficient enough for us to make commercial sense to install it in our public area?
Fantastic. So you've as always turned a huge challenge to meet an ambitious target into an opportunity for innovation and collaboration. Very, very inspiring, Minister Grace. But beyond solar deployment, what else can we look forward to with regards to Singapore's push to decarbonize the energy sector?
So there are a few ways that we're looking at it. So there's R&D going on in making better power generation equipment. That's an important R&D element. We are also looking at better utilization of the electricity. We have renewable energies coming in. We also have different ways of harnessing solar energy. We are testing out other alternative energy as well, including wind, including tidal, studying the possibility of implementation, and also putting them together. How can we have a grid system that's smart enough for us to have two-way flow of electricity, for us to be able to manage it so that, we have a much smarter way of meeting the peak and trough of energy. These are all important work that we are going on, but as I mentioned earlier on, we are not just looking at solutions in Singapore. We see that there are possibilities of, for example, looking at hydrogen and looking at solar from another country. So having transboundary energy grid is on the cards. We are actually in the process of studying the feasibility, and we're very excited by the potential.
Fantastic. Well, this actually brings us very close to my next question. Beyond domestic efforts, what can we expect from Singapore in the international front? What role does the international community play in Singapore's transition to a low-carbon future?
We really benefit a lot from our collaboration with international parties. I think at the political level, the fact that we have agreements on some of the approaches help us in clarifying the path ahead. So Paris Agreement, for example, is a very good start. It makes us think about what is our national targets and also what is our long-term strategy towards these targets. We also look out for opportunities for international collaboration at the research and development arena. There's a lot that we can do to find solutions. So innovation is really taking place in many, many areas. So for example, in the area of agri-tech, we are moving into agri-tech. We are intention to supply 30% of our nutritional needs by 2030 locally. So in this process, in the next 10 years, we'll be really looking for solutions. Solutions on the use of LED, for example, for urban farming, solutions on feedstock, on fertilizer, solutions on seed technology. So each one of them will contribute towards our goals, and we are out there to really look for opportunities to learn, to acquire, and to invest in innovative solutions.
Welcome back to On Renewables. We are delighted to have Singapore's Minister for Sustainability and Environment, Grace Fu, with us still. Grace, thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
So far, we've got you really interesting first-hand perspectives on how the Singaporean government is planning to combat climate change and to be more sustainable. But for this segment, we would like to bring our listeners a bit closer to Grace Fu, the person. To do that, we have some more personal questions. If you are happy and ready to answer some of those.
This is really a harder part of the segment.
Trust me, it's gonna be fun. Okay, so here we go. You've got a very strong financial and business professional background. How did that lead you into the path of the Ministry of Sustainability and the Environment?
That's a very good question. I suppose you have to ask my boss, the Prime Minister. But I suppose, every one of us in the cabinet, we bring with us sort of diverse skills and experience. So I would like to think that my financial backgrounds put me in a position where I'm able to understand the private sector and the public sector. So very often in an area, in a ministry where there's a lot of innovation going on, that sense of balance is very important because as we are moving the country, moving the economy towards a more carbon efficient one, transiting into a more sustainable economy, that change, I think, has to be nuanced. We know the risk of moving ahead too quickly. You entrench a technology that's immature, it's expensive. At the same time, if you do not move fast enough, it becomes uninspiring.
You're doing a fantastic job already. So you also served as Singapore's Minister for Culture, Community and Youth. What lessons did you take from that role, and how did that prepare you for taking this new portfolio?
The Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth is one that's in building social capital. Whether it's in youth, whether it's sports, or whether arts or culture, it's a way to bring people with diverse background together. So we have been looking at ways to build that identity and to build that bonds. So I hope to bring that skill set to the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment, because this is an area that requires change. It requires change from the political level to the business level to individual level, the way that we consume, the way that we throw away things. So how do we implement change, innovate, and still be together, still coming together as one? I think that's a skill set I hope that I'll bring to MSE.
Very important, extremely important. But also, my next question is very important. How do you relax when you're not in the office?
One good thing that come out of my stint in MCCY, the Ministry of Culture and Community and Youth, is that sports is one of the sector that we look after. So I have had the great opportunity of interacting with many athletes, elite athletes, fitness coaches, and so on. So I have, I like to think that I have a rather disciplined regime when it comes to fitness and health. And I enjoy having a run in this nice green environment.
Nice. Singaporeans are known for their love of food and their hawker centers. So we have to know, what is your favorite local Singaporean dish?
If I tell you one dish, it will be political suicide because it's a very passionate topic. And no one has the same answer to that. So I would say that probably something that I will miss if I've been away for a long time is our famous chicken rice, Hainanese chicken rice, which is steamed chicken resting on a bowl of chicken, of rice is soaked in chicken oil and garlic.
Well, that's a very yummy and a very politically correct answer.
I hope that you will have a chance to visit us one day soon and we can bring you to our famous hawker centers.
I would definitely take you on that invitation. Thank you so much. So if you were not into politics, what career would you pursue?
I think I'll probably be taking up a job in university because I enjoy teaching. I enjoy interacting with people. I enjoy that intellectual stimulation from learning from the academia and looking at research and development. So yeah, that will be my second career maybe.
Fantastic. Grace, what was your biggest learning curve from 2020?
How to use Zoom. But I mean, joke aside, I mean, that's on the individual level. For 2020, for me, it's really about how do we be more resilient. It has been a tough year for all of us as individuals, as organizations, as a country. We are still coping with the challenges of COVID-19. So this ability to draw really from the strength from yourself, from within, rely on the bonds, the social trust that you have built up with your colleagues, with your people over the years, and then to provide leadership even behind Zoom lenses. I think that has been the greatest challenge and the greatest learning for me.
So what's your biggest hope for 2021?
That COVID will be behind us soon. And that, as I said, that we have a much brighter future ahead of us, that we can put sustainability in the center of our discussions internationally. We hope that more countries will put their attention on this matter, very important matter. And then we hope that we can meet soon to move this agenda forward.
Thank you, Grace, for your time. It has been an honor to have you with us on renewables, and I definitely look forward to hosting you here in Abu Dhabi, the UAE, and I look forward to meeting you and seeing you and visiting you in Singapore. Thanks a million, and have
Thank
a
you
great
so much.
day.
I have really enjoyed my talk with you. Thank you very much, and keep safe.
Thanks for listening to On Renewables. If you liked us, subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a rating on Apple Podcast. And if you've got any feedback or questions for any of us at the UAE Mission, leave us a comment on our social media pages on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.